Have you ever wondered why the most understanding people often seem the most tired? They're calm, kind, emotionally aware, the ones who always know how to comfort others. But psychology says that same sensitivity comes with a hidden cost, because when you can feel everything, you end up carrying more than most people realize. Let's break down the psychology of emotionally intelligent people and why beneath their calm, so many of them are quietly exhausted. There's a kind of person who never raises their voice, who nods gently while others speak, who always seems to know the right thing to say when everyone else falls silent. They're the ones people call when everything's falling apart: the mediator, the listener, the calm in the storm. But what most people never see is how much energy it takes to hold that space, to understand everyone and rarely feel understood. Emotional intelligence isn't always loud or celebrated. It often lives in people who feel more than they let on. People who can sit in someone else's discomfort without rushing to fix it, who read tone shifts, sense unspoken sadness, adjust their energy to match the room, all without thinking. It's a gift that feels like grace on the outside. But sometimes inside, it's just tired. Because the more you understand people, the more of their weight you carry, even when they never ask you to. And over time, even kindness can feel heavy. Emotional intelligence starts in the brain, specifically in a network tied to empathy, intuition, and interpersonal sensitivity. If you're emotionally intelligent, your mind is wired to track what others feel, even before they say it. You don't just hear someone's words, you absorb their energy. Their disappointment echoes in your chest. Their anxiety becomes a quiet pressure in your own system. Psychologists call this empathic accuracy, the ability to read and interpret emotion with precision. And it often leads to something called emotional labor, the constant, invisible work of regulating not just your own emotions, but everyone else's too. Many emotionally intelligent people co-regulate without realizing it. They calm tension, manage group dynamics, soothe egos, not for credit, but because their brain notices everything. But tuning into others, that often comes at a cost, because your brain isn't just processing your own world, it's managing everyone else's too. And eventually, it blurs the boundaries between where you end and others begin. This kind of exhaustion doesn't always look like burnout. Sometimes it looks like quiet detachment. You might still smile, still show up, still listen, but after even one conversation, you feel full, like your mind can't take in anything more. You start ignoring messages, not out of avoidance, but self-preservation. You cancel plans not because you don't care, but because you're too tired to carry someone else's feelings that day. And yet, the guilt follows you, because when you're used to being the strong one, stepping back feels like a betrayal. You want to be there. You always have been. But lately, even kindness feels heavy. That's what emotional fatigue is. It's not giving up on people. It's giving out from giving too much. And when emotional intelligence isn't paired with healthy boundaries, it becomes self-erasure. You lose track of your own emotions because you're too full of everyone else's. You stop asking for help because your role has always been the helper. You listen so well, you forget what your own voice sounds like. This isn't just emotional, it's biological. Emotional intelligence lights up both the prefrontal cortex, which helps you understand, and the limbic system, where you feel. When both systems are activated for too long without rest, they burn out. Your brain becomes overstimulated from constant emotional decoding, and over time, you may begin to experience something psychologists call empathic distress, where others' pain starts to feel like your own. You might even hit a state of emotional numbness, not because you don't care anymore, but because your system is maxed out. There's also emotional contagion, the unconscious absorption of other people's moods and energy. And when it happens too often, it leads to compassion fatigue, a subtle chronic depletion that's hard to name but even harder to shake. So, no, this isn't weakness. This is your mind working overtime. And like any high functioning system, it needs rest to keep working well. Even the most emotionally attuned people need somewhere safe to empty what they've absorbed. People think strength looks like composure, like always having the right words, like being the person others can lean on. But real strength is knowing when you're too tired to carry it all. The most emotionally intelligent people often reach a quiet breaking point, not explosive, not dramatic, just a slow unraveling. They lose their appetite for conversation. They avoid noise, not because they're angry, but because they've reached full capacity. They stop expressing their own emotions, not because they're fine, but because they've been protecting others from their truth for too long. Psychologists call it self-silencing, the quiet habit of putting other people's emotional comfort before your own. It looks like emotional strength, but it's really exhaustion dressed as grace. You don't want to burden anyone, not because you think you're unworthy, but because you know how heavy feelings can be. But even the strongest empathy has limits, and part of wisdom is knowing when to rest. Most people think emotional intelligence is just a skill, but for many, it starts as a survival instinct. Think about the child who had to read the room before they could speak, the one who learned to decode moods to stay safe, the one who became a peacekeeper before they ever felt peace themselves. That child becomes the adult who notices too much, who soothes conflict instinctively, who feels guilt when they say no, even when no is the right answer. Emotional intelligence often begins not in classrooms, but in kitchens, living rooms, and long car rides filled with tension. And it becomes the armor you wear into adulthood, always anticipating, always reading, always adapting. But what once kept you safe can quietly keep you tired. Because when your personality is built around emotional survival, peace starts to feel unfamiliar. It's not that you don't want to relax, it's just that your nervous system doesn't always believe it's allowed to. Still, there's power in your sensitivity. It's not fragility, it's high resolution awareness. You see things others miss. The meaning behind the silence, the contradiction in a smile, the subtext in a compliment. Psychologists call this emotional granularity, the ability to identify emotions with nuance and accuracy. And it's what makes you a safe space for others. It's what gives your presence weight, even in silence. But sensitivity needs structure. It needs boundaries. It needs permission to rest. Because you don't have to be always on to be emotionally intelligent. You don't have to burn out to be supportive. You don't have to absorb to understand. Emotional maturity isn't about carrying everyone. It's about learning to stay whole while you care. And that begins with noticing, by asking, what's mine? And what have I picked up from someone else? You practice detachment, not from love, but from over-identification. You let others feel their own emotions while still offering presence and kindness. This is called empathic detachment, witnessing someone's pain without drowning in it. You also build rituals of emotional reset, walking alone, sitting in stillness, listening to music that lets you feel, not fix, creating, resting, breathing. Most importantly, you start listening to yourself as much as you listen to others. Because emotional intelligence is not just about awareness outward, it's about attention inward. You can still care, still hold space, still love deeply, just not all the time, not at the expense of your own center. It's not selfish to rest, it's how empathy stays alive. Eventually, something shifts. You're still emotionally intelligent, still sensitive, still aware, but now you pause. You ask yourself how you feel before you ask anyone else. You protect your peace with the same intensity you once protected others, and you realize you haven't hardened. You've softened toward yourself. Emotional intelligence isn't about being endlessly understanding. It's about finally including yourself in what you understand. So exhale, unclench your jaw, rest your mind. This is not the end of your empathy. It's just the beginning of your balance. Do you ever feel like you understand everyone but yourself? Have you ever been the strong one and quietly burned out from it? What helps you refill when empathy drains you? If this story resonated, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss tomorrow's reflection. Share this with someone who might need to hear it tonight. Our other stories should be appearing on your screen now. Watch them next. And I'll see you tomorrow at the same time.